Achieving fame is easier said than done, as is evidenced by these tales of celebrities who didn't become known to the general public until after their untimely deaths. From Vincent van Gogh to Anne Frank, join Factsverse as we take a look at celebrities who only became famous after they died. Vincent van Gogh. One of the figureheads of not becoming famous until after death has to be artist Vincent van Gogh. In today's cultural landscape, there are few artists as ubiquitous as Vincent, but the painter barely saw recognition whatsoever during his life. He had a lot of trouble making ends meet, and this is a big part of why he decided to commit suicide. Vincent was only 37 when he shot himself in his chest twice, ending his life July 28, 1980. He likely imagined nothing would ever come of his life's work, but that wasn't the case. All of Vincent's paintings were left to his brother Theo. After his death, Theo married a woman named Jo. Theo himself died 2 years later, leaving his wife to take care of their kid on her own. A kid wasn't the only thing he left with his wife, though. He also left all the paintings his brother had left to him. Jo found herself with a starving child and a bunch of worthless paintings. Not wanting to succumb, she tried her best to make a living selling the left-behind works of her former brother-in-law. Miraculously, she ended up making Vincent's paintings famous all on her own. She is credited with turning her late brother-in-law into the famous artist he's known as today. James Dean. James Dean is a figure who at least managed to find a modicum of success during his short life. However, he didn't become known as the icon that he's considered to be today until after his untimely death. He was an up-and-coming film star who only appeared in 3 films before his death at age 24. The death occurred as a result of a fatal car crash, and most blamed the actor's penchant for speeding. By the time James Dean died, September 30th, 1955, he'd only appeared in those 3 films, but they brought a lot of attention to the young man, and audiences were anxiously waiting for whatever he was going to do next. He was born in 1931 and dreamt of becoming an actor all his life. He caught his big break when he was given a role in the 1952 adaptation of John Steinbeck's East of Eden. The other 2 films were Rebel Without a Cause and Giant. Rebel Without a Cause was released in 1955, and it was the last of James's to be released before his death that September. The next year, Giant was released posthumously, bringing the deceased actor lots of fame. Israel Kamakawiwo'ole. Israel, also known as Iz, was a Hawaiian legend throughout much of his life. However, the ukulele player didn't find worldwide fame until after his tragic and untimely death at age 38. Iz died in 1997, and his death made such waves in his home state of Hawaii that around 10,000 mourners were said to have shown up for his Honolulu-based memorial service. Many people thought this was the end of his story, but after his death, Iz went on to find fame all over the world thanks to his beautiful music. The song that made Iz into a global phenomenon was his rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Of course, Judy Garland popularized the song when she appeared in The Wizard of Oz. Iz's rendition has grown to surpass her version in the eyes of many. Despite how big Iz's take on the song has become, the recording had humble origins. He recorded it in one simple take and didn't do any overdubs. During that same recording session, he also recorded a version of What a Wonderful World. Iz's rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow was recorded in 1988, and the recording session apparently occurred on a whim. The track wasn't released until '93, when Iz unveiled his solo album Facing Future to the public. Today, his rendition is recognized as the best-selling piece of music to ever come out of Hawaii. Iz was born in 1959 and became known for his work with a band called the Makaha Sons before becoming known as a solo artist. It was during his days with the Makaha Sons that hints of his dark future began to emerge. He always suffered from obesity, and his suffering only grew worse as he got older. His health caused him to have to skip out on several performances with the Makaha Sons, and this eventually caused the band to break up. Once Iz found success as a solo artist, it wasn't long before his obesity got in the way again. In the years leading to his untimely death, Iz's weight went upwards of 700 pounds. He also was addicted to drugs during his life. Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe is another classical figurehead when it comes to not finding fame until after death. His birth father abandoned him after he was born in 1809, and his mother died of tuberculosis. This meant he spent his childhood between foster homes. When he reached adult age, he headed to New York to become an author. The time when he was trying to make a name for himself also happened to be during the Panic of 1837. It was a financial crisis that led to a depression. This greatly affected the market for writers, with Edgar only barely managing to find work as a critic. During this period of time, 26-year-old Edgar married his 13-year-old first cousin. Her name was Virginia Clem. She later died an untimely death, inspiring her husband to write the poem The Raven. After his wife died from tuberculosis, just as his mother had, Edgar started drinking excessively. The final years of his life were as strange as his writing. Shortly before his death, he was found wandering the streets in confusion. Some believed Edgar had made the transformation into one of the cursed protagonists from his strange fiction stories. More practical people assumed that the struggling writer had been drugged as a part of a voter fraud scheme. Regardless, the fact of the matter stands that the author died penniless in October of 1949 and didn't find fame until after his death. Not only would Edgar Allan Poe grow to be a famous figure, but also an influential one. The horror scene of today would not be the same if it wasn't for this 19th century writer. Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is another figure who managed to find a modicum of fame over his life, but didn't find legendary status until after his death. Before his death, Bruce was perhaps best known for portraying the sidekick character of Kato on the TV series The Green Hornet. But in the years leading up to his death, Bruce was starting to draw attention as a film star. Bruce was a very hard-working martial artist who made a name for himself in Hollywood teaching other stars his skills before becoming a leading man of his own. He's credited with teaching Steve McQueen karate. Before passing away at age 32, Bruce appeared in the films The Way of the Dragon and Enter the Dragon. Both films went on to be considered some of the best of their kind. Robert Johnson. If finding fame proves too tricky for you, one thing you can fall back on is selling your soul to the devil. This is what legendary blues musician Robert Johnson was said to have done. He was alleged to have sold his soul to the devil in exchange for his guitar-playing abilities. The deal worked, but it came with a caveat. Robert Johnson became famous for playing guitar, but not until after his death. The blues musician didn't become widely known until the 1960s, when figures like Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page began paying homage to him in their own works. Today, Robert Johnson is a true blues legend. Anne Frank. Anne Frank is undeniably the most tragic figure on this list. She became known to the public after her diary was published posthumously. That diary contained the story of the Jewish girl and her family trying to evade capture in the Nazi-occupied Netherlands. Of course, they weren't successful. After Anne and her family were captured, they were sent to concentration camps. Everyone in the family, besides Anne's father, passed away by the end of World War II. After the war, Anne's father took it upon himself to make sure that the story of his daughter lived on via publication. Now it's time to hear from you. Were you familiar with all of these stories? Which were most surprising? Let us know in the comments section below.